Hi there. It is January, and some of you might be starting to think about your taxes. And so I just want to take a couple of minutes to talk to you a little bit about one of the things I think is one of the best benefits, and is often either ignored or underutilized by many consultants. But it's the tax benefits that come from having a home-based business like Pampered Chef. So I want to give you a little scoop on that so that you can take full advantage of what is available to you. First of all, we are going to receive a 1099 from Pampered Chef. It is going to be posted on Consultants Corner near the end of the month, and a hard copy will be mailed. I find that very often the hard copy doesn't arrive to my house until early in February. But if we go on to Consultants Corner, we're just going to do a little screen share. And you go to home. Oops, I'm gonna move this little thing out of the way here. We're gonna go to my account. Okay, and then you go to financial information and you go to tax information. Okay, and there you will see information about your 1099 right here. Okay, so that's where you find the 1099. Now, I want to let you guys know, don't faint when you look at your 1099. There's going to be two income columns. There's going to be one income area that's going to count your commission and your overrides. And it's going to give a total for that. Then you're going to see an area that says other income. That's the part I don't want you to faint about. That's going to include things like Pampered Chef dollars, free product, promotional items that you earned for hitting a certain level in sales every month. Don't faint, because most, if not all, of the items listed on your other income will be a wash tax-wise for you. And what I mean by that is you're going to go ahead and turn around and write it all off, because the products you earn for free, well, they're business deductions. You use them for your business. The Pampered Chef dollars you earn that you turn into product or paperwork, well, those are business expenses. So you're going to turn around and write that off. Any promotional items, you know, the mug that we earned this month for submitting 750, things like that. Well, those are things you use to promote your business. So these are things you're going to turn around and write off as a wash. Pampered Chef needs to show them as income to us so that they can write it off on their end, okay? So don't go, oh my gosh, I have to pay all this taxes on this stuff. No, you don't. The only exception I can think of is if you earn an incentive trip. We can't write the whole incentive trip off. Some people write a portion of it off. Talk to your tax preparer about that. Okay, but in the same area, so I'm going to go back to, oh, I got out of it, so I'm going to go back to my account, back to financial information. You'll see income and expense reports. I'll go ahead and I'll click on that. And if you are not familiar with this, this is something you definitely want to take a look at. I don't put my income in here because I've got you know, a way to keep track of that, but this is where I track my expenses. So let's say I drive to a show and I want to write off the mileage. I'm going to click on add an expense. I'm going to put in the show number. If I don't know it, I can click on here and look through my shows to find it. Put the date, and then here it says kit enhancement, but I can just go, oh, it's mileage. And then I can put in the description to and from the show, and then I can deduct it. Okay, and if you look here, you'll see all kinds of categories. Yours might not have as many categories as mine because I've added categories. All right, so the list that's on here for all of us is not a complete list of what is possible, but it's a general list of what we can all deduct. Things like if you do an in-home or even a virtual kickoff, anything you purchased for that kickoff, maybe you bought some door prizes, maybe you bought some food, if you were doing a live demo on your virtual kickoff, or if it was an in-home kickoff, you bought paper goods, you bought mimosas or whatever ingredients for your food, you put out a cheese platter. That's all a tax deduction. Okay, when we practice recipes, you get a new rock crock and you want to practice a few recipes to see what this thing can do. Those recipes are tax deductible, so too are the mileage to and from the grocery store. When you go to the post office to mail packets, your mileage to and from the post office, as well as the cost of mailing those packets, are a business expense. If you had to buy a printer and ink to support your business, a portion or all of that can be a business deduction. You buy pens, envelopes, stamps. Yep, it's a write-off. Promotional materials. Maybe you bought a shirt that has the Pampered Chef logo on it. Well, that's a business expense. Maybe you bought a sticker for your car. That's a business expense. Okay, things like that. So if you purchased additional paperwork for your business beyond what came in your kit, those are all business expenses. You will find them there. But there are some other categories that my tax preparer showed me were actually possible for me. So I clicked to edit the category and I added my own categories this way. Now, what kind of categories did I add? I put in office assistant. It's in here someplace. Anyway, office assistant. When my kids were little, they were my office assistants. You can, at least this was years ago, you can check into the what's current, but I could pay my kids up to $600 each to be office assistants. So they could stamp my catalogs, they could stuff host packets. They could wash my dishes after I did a segment live, or I bring them to my shows and they were my assistant there and my dishes there. If you have kids who are learning how to drive, this is a great way to get their practice hours in, especially nighttime driving. It's an evening show. They're driving back in the dark, but I digress. Childcare. I didn't realize until I had a tax preparer that some of my childcare was an expense. I was a stay-at-home mom till I did, and then when I started doing Pampered Chef, I hired a little mother's helper to come over 2 afternoons a week for 2 hours so I could get caught up on my work. Well, because those were my office hours and I was paying a little teenager in the neighborhood to watch my kids while I was home, it turned out to be a tax deduction. When my kids went to nursery school and I posted that those were my office hours, guess what? Now the cost of the nursery school was tax deductible. Okay, so you can check into things like that. Home office deduction. If you have a spot in your home that is totally dedicated to Pampered Chef, then you can take advantage of a home office deduction. Okay. And by the way, I've been taking a home office deduction for over 20 years. I've never been audited for my business. Some people think that's a red flag for being audited, but guys, there's so many people who work remotely now. It is not considered a red flag at all. It's pretty common, but the space has to be dedicated completely to Pampered Chef. Another thing, if most of your money, or at least some of your money from Pampered Chef is sort of extra fun money, and you want to put more money away for retirement, you can consider opening a SEP. That's called SEP, which stands for a self-employment pension plan. And you can take up to, I believe, 25% of what you make with Pampered Chef, put it in your SEP for your retirement. And guess what? That takes it off the table for the current year as taxable income. If you're fortunate enough to have a really high family income and you make too much money to have a SEP, you can look into what's called an individual 401k plan. And with that, you can take even more than 25% of what you make, take it off the table, set it aside for retirement, and it takes it off the table for this year as taxable income, which is really helpful if you got kids in college because you have to fill out a FAFSA form. And at the FAFSA form, they look at your taxable income, but they don't look at retirement, okay? So those are just some things that are available that I know of that you might want to look into if depending on your situation. Now, when we go to fill out our taxes as a business owner, we need to fill out a Schedule C. If you are an old-fashioned type of paper and pen person, go to your post office, find a Schedule C there. Or, of course, you can find it online. It's a good thing even if you're not filing your taxes on your own, but you're preparing to give information to people who are filing taxes. It's a good idea to look at that Schedule C so that you can figure out, what you can deduct so you know what to keep track of. If you are a TurboTax user, you're going to want to get the TurboTax with a Schedule C. And guess what? When you buy that, the cost of your TurboTax with Schedule C is a business deduction. Or you can simply talk to your tax preparer and find out what they need from you. So that's what I've got. I have found that with Pampered Chef, and I'm not absolutely meticulous about writing everything off, but I have my habits in place, and I do write off most of what I can legally write off. And I have found that back when I was a nurse, I drove from New Hampshire down to Boston. I paid tolls. I ate dinner at the hospital when I worked my evening shift. I couldn't write any of that off. So I had to pay, well, you know, if we were in the 25% tax bracket, I had to pay 25% on everything I made as a nurse. All of a sudden I became a Pampered Chef consultant, and I make this much money, but I write off this, this, and this. I'm only paying 25% of this much. And so I'm able to keep way more of what I make, which was why way back when, even though after a year and a half in business, I wasn't yet making as much as I had as a nurse, but I kept as much I did as a nurse after I paid childcare and all the rest. So it is really worth looking into this and really finding out what's available to you. Because the last thing I want to close with is I am not a tax professional. I don't even know all the New Hampshire laws, and I live in New Hampshire. Never mind the laws in whatever state in which you reside. So if you've got questions, take them to a tax preparer in your area. But I hope this helps you get the ball rolling. Okay? Happy tax season.